Checkmate. The word dropped like a stone in the glittering silence of Aurora Tech's 10th anniversary gala. Hundreds of employees stood frozen champagne glasses halfway to their lips as Evelyn Storm leaned back in her chair and rested her manicured fingers on the edge of the mahogany chessboard. Across from her, the CFO, a man twice her age and twice as proud, blinked at the black queen that had cornered his king in a flawless German chess formation. The crowd erupted. Applause thundered through the glass-walled atrium overlooking the New York skyline. Evelyn rose slowly, smoothing her ivory blazer. Her voice was calm, crisp, magnetic. "Chess is simple," she said into the mic the event host had nervously offered her. "Life is noise." The crowd laughed politely, unsure whether it was arrogance or poetry. Evelyn didn't wait to explain. She simply turned her heels, clicking sharply on the marble floor as she walked off the stage. From the far back of the room, near the catering carts and the cleaning staff, Noah Beckett paused with his mop handle in hand. He wasn't supposed to be there. Janitors didn't attend galas, but he'd been called in last minute after the catering crew spilled champagne on the floor. He watched Evelyn Storm glide past the crowd, her presence commanding like gravity. Her expression never cracked, not a smile, not a flicker of emotion. Cold as the board she just conquered, he thought. Then her voice came again through the microphone, steady and distant. "Let's make this more interesting. From now on, anyone in this company who can beat me in German chess earns an instant promotion. No interviews, no committees, just pure merit." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the hall. Someone whispered, "She's joking." Another laughed. Who'd dare? But Evelyn didn't smile. Her words landed like truth. Talent should never hide behind job titles, she said, looking straight at the executive table, but her eyes lingered a heartbeat too long on the back row where janitors and technicians stood. Then she walked away the crowd, parting like a tide. Noah lowered his mop. He didn't know why his heart thumped harder than it should have. Later that night, long after the guests had gone, the atrium was quiet again. The lights dimmed to soft gold reflecting off the glass chessboard still sitting on the stage. Noah pushed his mop bucket across the marble, humming faintly to himself. 8-year-old Sophie, his daughter, sat cross-legged near the corner drawing on a napkin. He was on the night shift, and sometimes when her babysitter couldn't make it, she came along and stayed quietly in the lounge with her crayons. "Daddy," she whispered, eyes glancing toward the stage. "That lady, she's really smart, huh? Smart, yeah," Noah murmured, wringing out the mop. "And tough. Probably doesn't even sleep." Sophie grinned. "You could beat her." He laughed under his breath. "Sweetheart, she's a billionaire CEO. I'm a guy who cleans up spilled coffee. But you used to be the best," she insisted. "Mom said you could beat anyone." His hand froze mid-motion. It had been years since anyone mentioned his chess past years, since he'd packed away the trophies, the newspaper clippings, the invitations he never answered. Before hospitals, before the insurance forms, before everything collapsed. He smiled faintly, masking the ache. "That was a long time ago, Peanut." Sophie tilted her head undeterred. "She said you only quit because you got tired of people being mean." Noah blinked. He'd forgotten his late wife ever said that. "She was right," he said softly. "People forget kindness when they want to win." Sophie looked at the chessboard on stage, its pieces still frozen in Evelyn's victory. "Then, maybe she needs someone nice to beat her," she whispered. Noah chuckled. "That's not how the world works, kiddo." But as he returned to his work, he noticed something odd, a sheet of paper lying near the CEO's office door. It was a printed memo, creased and forgotten. Aurora Tech German Chess Challenge Official Registration Form. The bold letters stared back at him. He picked it up. Just a formality, surely some PR stunt. Yet, as he read the line, "Any employee of Aurora Tech may enter," he hesitated. He looked through the glass walls toward the distant skyline. New York glowed like an endless circuit board, alive and indifferent. Somewhere up there, people like Evelyn Storm made choices that changed lives. Down here, he just mopped up after them. Sophie came over tugging his sleeve. "Are you gonna fill it out?" He smiled sadly. They'd laugh honey. They laughed at David, too, before he beat Goliath. He stared at her, this tiny girl with her mother's stubborn eyes, and something inside him shifted. By midnight, the building was empty. Noah stood outside Evelyn's office door. The hallway smelled faintly of disinfectant and citrus polish. He could hear the quiet hum of the city through the glass walls. He hesitated, the form trembling slightly in his hand. Every rational part of him screamed to walk away. He had Bill's responsibilities, a child to raise. He didn't need attention or ridicule. But then he remembered Sophie's words, "You could beat her." For a long moment, he simply stared at the frosted glass nameplate, Evelyn Storm, CEO. Then, with a quiet exhale, he bent down, slid the form under the door, and straightened up. A single act of madness, or maybe courage. He turned to leave. Behind the glass, the lights flickered on. Evelyn had been inside the whole time. She watched the shadow of the man walk away, her reflection overlapping his in the glass. Her eyes narrowed not in anger, but in intrigue. "A janitor," she murmured. "Interesting." She picked up the paper he left, reading the name written in careful block letters, Noah Beckett. Her lips curved not quite into a smile. Then, let's play. By the time Noah and Sophie stepped out into the cold night, the city had quieted. He carried her asleep in his arms, her head resting on his shoulder. For the first time in years, he felt something stirring beneath the exhaustion, something dangerous, exhilarating, and terrifyingly alive. Not pride, not defiance, something smaller, more fragile. Hope. And somewhere high above in her glass tower office, Evelyn set the form neatly on her desk beside the chessboard, aligning it perfectly to the edge like the first piece of a new game. "Wait!" The janitor murmurs fluttered through Aurora Tech's towering halls like startled birds. By morning, the news had already spread. An anonymous submission to Evelyn Storm's German chess challenge had been made. And by noon, someone leaked the name Noah Beckett, night janitor, floor 7. Whispers turned into chuckles. Chuckles into snickers. Noah, who? He cleans the break room fridge. Bold move, or suicidal. Outside the executive conference room, employees gathered in clusters, phones and hand eyes flicking toward the clock. The match was scheduled for 3 p.m. sharp. Inside, Evelyn sat alone at the far end of the room, black pieces already arranged on her side of the board. Her posture was perfect expression, unreadable. A faint smirk tugged at the corner of her lips, not out of mockery, but fascination. This wasn't arrogance. Evelyn Storm was many things, but careless wasn't one of them. "Let them laugh," she murmured, aligning her rook with surgical precision. "The quiet ones always surprise you." At 2:59 p.m., the door opened. Noah stepped inside wearing his cleanest uniform and a pair of worn leather shoes. His eyes scanned the room, noting the marble table, the high-tech cameras in each corner, and the dozen executives pressed silently against the back wall, pretending to observe neutrally. He said nothing. He simply walked to his seat across from Evelyn and nodded. "Mr. Beckett," Evelyn said without looking up. "Do you know the rules of German chess?" His voice was calm, low, unshaken. "I know the rules of silence." That made her glance up. Their eyes met, and for a moment something unspoken flickered between them. Two minds used to being underestimated. "Very well," she replied. "Let's play." The game began. She opened with a modified Königsjäger and aggressive early control of the center. Fast, sharp, surgical. The kind of play designed to break an opponent's rhythm before it starts. Noah responded with caution, slowly, methodically. His pieces moved like a man sweeping floors, patient, deliberate, precise. At first, Evelyn dominated the board. She captured 2 minor pieces by move 9. By move 14, she had both central lines secured. In the corner of the room, Lucas Hale leaned toward Maya Lin and whispered, "He's folding already. Should have stayed with his mop." But Evelyn said nothing, because by move 18, something changed. Noah sacrificed a bishop boldly, some would say, carelessly. A rookie mistake. That's what it looked like. But 2 moves later, that gap allowed him to pin her knight with a sequence that disrupted her entire left flank. Evelyn's brows drew together for the first time. He wasn't folding. He was waiting. By move 23, it was no longer clear who had the advantage. Evelyn leaned forward, eyes flickering across the board like searchlights. Noah remained still, his fingers brushing the tops of his pieces as if reacquainting himself with old friends. In the back, the snickers faded. The room grew tense. Maya Lin squinted at the board, then whispered, "That's a Brookman lock." "He's setting a mirrored trap." Lucas blinked. "That's not in our playbooks." "Because it's not corporate," she murmured. "It's street chess. Pure instinct." Move 28. Evelyn launched a feint, her queen swinging wide to threaten his rear. Noah didn't flinch. Instead, he countered with an en passant that exposed his own king temporarily, only to reverse the pressure 2 moves later, forcing Evelyn's rook into a corner. It was a calculated vulnerability, a move only someone with complete control would dare. By move 32, it was clear neither would win this cleanly. Noah stared at the board, then back at Evelyn. "I can see the next 10 moves." Her voice was cool. "So can I." "Then you know it's a draw." She leaned back, fingers steepled. "Draws mean fear." Noah shook his head. "Draws mean respect." A long silence. Then Evelyn extended her hand. "Let's settle it next week. Same time." Noah didn't take her hand. He simply stood and nodded. "I'll bring my own piece, the janitor's mop." For a second, Evelyn almost smiled. As Noah exited the room, Lucas Hale approached Evelyn. "You shouldn't have entertained that circus act. You're undermining your credibility." Evelyn's gaze didn't waver from the board. "You think credibility comes from power." Lucas scoffed. "It doesn't come from janitors." But Evelyn's mind was elsewhere. "He plays like a man who's lost everything," she said softly, "and doesn't care about winning, only about not losing." Lucas frowned. "That's a dangerous kind of player." Evelyn whispered, "That's the only kind worth playing." Downstairs, Noah stepped into the locker room, his hands still faintly trembling, not from nerves, but memory. He opened his locker and pulled out a folded napkin. Inside, a child's crayon drawing a chessboard made of bottle caps. A stick-figure janitor facing off against a tall lady with a crown. Sophie had drawn it last night. At the bottom, in lopsided handwriting, she'd written, "For Daddy, beat the Queen." Noah smiled. He folded the napkin carefully and placed it in his chest pocket right above his heart. In the penthouse office above, Evelyn rewound the match footage frame by frame. Move 14, move 18, move 23. She paused at the bishop sacrifice. No expression, no twitch, no tells, only stillness. She leaned back and whispered to herself, "He plays with quiet hands, but every move screams." "Don't encourage the help, Evelyn. He's nobody." Lucas Hale's voice cut through the low hum of the boardroom like a blade. The morning after the draw, the Aurora Tech leadership team had assembled for their weekly strategy meeting, but the conversation had drifted, as everyone knew it would, to the company's most unexpected headline, "The Janitor Who Drew with the Billionaire." Evelyn Storm sat at the head of the table, motionless, her expression carved from marble. She stirred her coffee once, then set the spoon down with surgical precision. "Funny," she said quietly. "That's what they said about me when I was the intern who fixed the AI code no one could debug." Lucas exhaled sharply. "You're comparing yourself to him, I'm comparing potential," she replied, eyes never leaving the window, and the world's obsession with underestimating it. A pause followed. The executives exchanged wary glances. No one dared press further. Outside the boardroom, employees pretended to work but kept one ear tilted toward the glass walls. The whispers were everywhere now, fuel for gossip, coffee breaks, Slack messages. The janitor plays German chess. He nearly beat her. "Did you see the replay? That bishop trap. He's a ghost. They can't even find his LinkedIn. Rumors had a way of mutating faster than truth. That afternoon, Evelyn returned to her office on the top floor, a minimalist glass box suspended over Manhattan. Her assistant, Maya Lin, followed quietly, balancing a tablet and a latte. Schedule for the day, Evelyn asked without turning. Board call at 4, investor dinner at 7, Maya said, scrolling through notes, and a few dozen interview requests. Everyone wants to talk about the game. Decline them. Already did, Maya said with a small smile, though one headline was surprisingly poetic, The Queen and the Janitor. Evelyn's eyebrow lifted. Cliché sells. Maya hesitated, then spoke softer. You looked different yesterday, Evelyn. When you played him. Different human. Evelyn finally looked up. Her voice cooled. Be careful, Maya. Humanity doesn't close billion-dollar deals. But even as she said it, she felt the words tremble slightly in her chest. Down in the sub-levels, Noah worked quietly in the staff break room, replacing a flickering bulb. His coworkers kept glancing at him like he'd sprouted wings. Man, you really went up there and played the boss, one asked. Guess I did, and lived to tell the tale, another laughed. Noah smiled faintly, still breathing. Gotta say, the first janitor said you got guts. She's scary. Noah looked up at the humming fluorescent light. Fears just respect wearing a different coat. That silenced them for a while. By evening, Evelyn couldn't stop replaying the match in her head. It wasn't just the moves, it was the way he'd looked at the board. Calm, unhurried, like someone who saw the whole picture before anyone else realized they were even playing. It unnerved her and intrigued her. So she made a decision. She opened her internal database and searched Noah Beckett. The screen blinked. Position Janitorial Staff Night Division. Date hired 2020. Previous employment blank education blank notes. Excellent record. Polite. Declines over time. Her fingers drummed against the desk. Then she did something she almost never did. She bypassed the HR firewall. Within minutes, she had access to archived records, and there buried in an old regional news scan from 1999, she saw it, local prodigy Noah Beckett wins U.S. Youth Chess Championship at age 14. The photo was grainy, but there was no mistaking him. The same quiet eyes, same steady hands, standing beside a trophy nearly as tall as he was. Evelyn leaned back, slowly exhaling. A prodigy. Her mind clicked into motion. Why would someone like that end up here mopping floors? The next morning, she summoned Maya. Get me everything you can on Noah Beckett. Past education, family, anything public. Maya blinked. Should I tell him? No, Evelyn said. Not yet. I want to understand what I'm dealing with. Maya hesitated. You mean who? Evelyn looked out at the skyline, her voice barely a whisper. No. I mean what? That night, as the building emptied, Evelyn walked the quiet halls of Aurora Tech, a place she rarely saw after hours. The city lights shimmered against the glass. Her heels clicked softly on the polished floor. Then she stopped. Down the corridor, she saw Noah kneeling beside a vending machine, fixing a jammed coin slot. Sophie sat cross-legged beside him, drawing something on the back of a shipping box. Dad looked, the girl chirped. I made you, and her Noah looked down. The drawing was two stick figures sitting at a chessboard, one wearing a crown, the other holding a mop. Between them, a heart. He smiled faintly. That's accurate. Evelyn hesitated at the corner. She could walk away, pretend she didn't see. But something about that small, pure moment pinned her to the spot. Then Sophie noticed her. Hi, she called brightly. You're the Queen Lady. Evelyn froze. Noah turned startled. Oh, Miss Storm. Sorry. She, likes to draw. Evelyn stepped closer. I can see that. Very talented. Sophie grinned. Want to play again? Daddy says you're brave. Evelyn's breath caught. Brave. No one had used that word for her in years. I don't think your dad meant that, she said softly. Sophie shrugged. He only calls people brave when he likes them. Noah cleared his throat, flustered. All right, Soph, time to pack up. But Evelyn knelt beside the girl. You know, she said gently, your dad's move with the bishop yesterday, that was brave too. Sophie beamed. He said it's not about being brave, it's about not being scared to lose. Evelyn looked at Noah. Their eyes met steady, searching honest. And for the first time in a decade she felt something shift inside her admiration, not born of power, but of integrity. Later that night in her office, Evelyn poured herself a glass of wine she didn't really want. Her reflection glimmered in the dark window. She replayed the image of the little girl's crayon heart over the chessboard. You're dangerous, Mr. Beckett, she whispered to herself, because you remind me I'm human. She picked up her phone and dictated a message to Maya's schedule rematch. No audience, no cameras. Tomorrow night. Then she added one more line almost as an afterthought, and tell security to let his daughter wait in the lounge. Down in his small apartment that night, Noah sat on the couch watching Sophie sleep beside a pile of sketchbooks. The city lights spilled through the blinds, painting soft, silver stripes across the floor. He opened a dusty wooden box, the one he hadn't touched in years. Inside were old medals, a cracked chess timer, and a faded photo of his late wife holding baby Sophie. He whispered into the quiet, "Looks like I'm playing again, Grace." He smiled sadly, but this time not for trophies. He glanced at the drawing Sophie had made the janitor and the queen. This time he murmured for something real. Close the blinds. No live stream. Evelyn's voice echoed softly through the executive boardroom. This time dimly lit the city outside, glowing like scattered stars. The chessboard sat in the center of the table, reset gleaming under a pendant light like a stage before curtain rise. No audience today, no press, no staff peering through glass walls, just Evelyn Storm and Noah Beckett. She took the black pieces again. Deliberate, calculated, unapologetically dominant. Noah walked in wearing the same Navy janitor's uniform, but this time his steps had changed. No hesitation, no meekness, just quiet confidence like a man who had stopped apologizing for his mind. Evelyn gestured toward the white side of the board. Your move, Mr. Beckett. He sat down, then smiled slightly. No trash talk today. I don't talk trash, she replied, meeting his gaze. I recycle it into strategy. He chuckled. So do I. Let's begin. The opening moves were clean, tense, a variation on the German defense, subtle but strategic. Each player moved like a dancer, counting tempo, eyes never leaving the other. Evelyn struck first, pushing a pawn, aggressively testing the edges of his formation. Noah parried with grace, absorbing pressure without resistance. By move 12, she'd captured a knight. By move 15, he'd pinned her bishop. By move 19, neither had blinked. In silence, the pieces told a story only they could hear. At move 22, Evelyn leaned forward. Her voice was low. Why did you really enter this? Noah didn't look up. Why does anyone do something reckless? That's not an answer, she said. It's the only honest one. She studied him, her queen hovering midair. You're not here to prove you're better. No, he said. I'm here to remember I still am. She made her move. Still what? He moved his pawn. Capable. The word lingered. Move 28 changed everything. Noah sacrificed his queen. Evelyn stiffened, caught off guard. It was suicidal on the surface. But then she saw it, the trap. 3 turns ahead, her entire right flank was exposed. It wasn't recklessness. It was trust, trust in foresight, trust in the endgame. You play like a man who's been burned, she murmured. He met her eyes. You play like a woman who doesn't know if she's alive. The silence thickened. Then she smiled, a small tragic curl of the lips. That makes 2 of us. Move 35. She launched an attack. Calculated. Relentless. It forced him into a corner, but not checkmate. Not yet. He defended like stone, immovable, quiet, exact. His rook slid across the board with the grace of someone who had studied not from books, but from brokenness. The match stretched past 40 moves. Sweat beaded on Noah's brow. Evelyn's breath grew slower, deeper. By move 45, the board was stripped bare, just 3 pieces each, and one mistake from either would cost everything. Noah looked up. We could draw. Evelyn didn't respond immediately. Then, softly, a draw is a silent surrender. He shook his head. No. A draw is when 2 storms refuse to break each other. She studied the board, studied him. Then, with the softest sigh, she moved her rook and laid her king on its side. Checkmate. To herself, Evelyn stood slowly. You win. Noah didn't gloat. He simply sat back, breathing through the tension. I didn't come here to win. She turned to face the window hands in her pockets. Then why did you... He hesitated. Then carefully. Because my daughter saw something in me I stopped seeing a long time ago, and I wanted her to be right. The words hit harder than any opening attack. Evelyn's posture softened, shoulders not slumped but human. She's lucky, Evelyn said quietly. She has a father who shows up. Noah glanced at her, sensing the shift. Everyone shows up for something. Some just pick the wrong people to show up for. She looked at him. And for the first time there was no power dynamic, no CEO and janitor, just 2 bruised souls with their scars turned outward. Later, as they walked side by side down the quiet hall toward the elevators, Evelyn said, I looked you up. I figured, he said with a half smile. You're not the kind to leave stones unturned. You were a champion once. He nodded. I was a boy once, too. Life changes. You disappeared for 20 years. I didn't disappear, he said softly. I just stopped needing to be seen. She nodded as if understanding more than she wanted to admit. I know what that feels like, she said. To go invisible on purpose. Noah pressed the elevator button. The numbers lit up. The difference is, I had a reason. You had a shield. She looked at him sharply. But she didn't deny it. The elevator dinged open. He stepped in. She stayed outside. As the doors began to close, Evelyn said quietly, Do you believe in second games? Noah's hand stopped the door from closing. Only when both players have something left to lose. Their eyes met. The weight of everything unsaid pressed between them. Then he let the door close. The next morning, news leaked. Someone on the security team had accessed the match logs illegally. Screenshots hit internal networks. The janitor won. Storm's streak is broken. But Evelyn said nothing. She didn't call PR. Didn't fire anyone. She simply carried on. When Lucas Hale barged into her office, red with rage, waving a printed screenshot, she barely looked up. This is humiliating, he snapped. He played you like an amateur. He played me like a mirror, she replied. Lucas slammed the paper on her desk. What's next? You promote him. Evelyn's tone sharpened. Be careful, Lucas. Every company needs a man who can see 10 moves ahead. He stared at her. You're serious, I'm thinking, she said, which is more than you've done since this conversation started. He stormed out. She didn't stop him. Instead, she turned to the chessboard she kept on her shelf. She set it up again. White pieces in place. Black, ready. And she whispered to the board like it was a confession. Let's see if you come back, Mr. Beckett. Because the real game just started. The cafeteria at Aurora Tech was quiet at night, eerily so. Gone were the suits, the buzzing meetings, the clatter of cutlery. What remained was silence and warm lamplight, and in a corner booth by the window, Evelyn Storm sat across from the janitor who had just beaten her. Twice. Between them sat a plain tray, 2 bowls of chicken noodle soup, 2 bottles of water, 1 unopened chocolate milk. Sophie Beckett sat between them, swinging her legs. Daddy says you think 5 moves ahead, she told Evelyn proudly. Evelyn stirred her soup. "Only 5, Sophie giggled. "That's what he says when he's being modest." Noah chuckled beside her. "She gets her exaggeration from her mother." The moment hung. Evelyn looked at him gently. "You don't talk about your wife much." Noah hesitated, then folded his napkin in half. Her name was Grace. She loved sunflowers, hated cold pizza, and thought I should teach chess to kids, not billionaires. Evelyn smiled faintly. She sounds like someone who told the truth too easily. She did, even when it hurt. Sophie chimed in. She said, "Love is like chess. Sometimes you sacrifice what you love to protect what matters." That silenced the table. Evelyn looked down at her spoon, her grip softening. "She was right," Evelyn said quietly. "Sometimes the loss isn't the pain, it's what you gave up to avoid it." After dinner, Sophie curled up on a cushioned bench, her head resting on a folded hoodie Noah always carried in his satchel. Evelyn and Noah remained at the table, a second chessboard between them. "I thought we weren't playing tonight," Noah said. Evelyn tilted her head. "We're not." She moved a piece. "This one's not about winning. It's about learning how you think." Noah made his move. "That's the thing about chess," he said. "It reveals what people fear more than what they want." Evelyn paused. "And what do I fear, Mr. Beckett?" Noah looked up, eyes clear, voice steady. "That if you stop fighting, no one will know you were ever strong." She froze. Not offended, just seen. No one's ever said that to me. I don't say things to flatter. I noticed. They played in silence for a few minutes, each move like a heartbeat, slow, and waited. Then Evelyn asked, "Do you miss it, Chesno? The version of yourself before the world started taking pieces." Noah sat back. "I miss the man who believed sacrifice always meant something. That giving up your queen meant saving your king." Evelyn's voice dropped to a whisper. "And now I know sometimes you lose both." She reached for her water bottle. Her hands were steady, but her voice was not. "My mother died when I was 14, she said, eyes fixed on the window. She overdosed in the guest room. I found her." Noah didn't move. "I just won my first city tech tournament. Came home with a ribbon. I thought she'd be proud. Instead, she was cold. Literally." The words sat between them like fog. "She told me once," Evelyn continued, "that my brain was my armor, that if I kept it sharp, no one could touch me." Noah nodded slowly. "That's not armor. That's exile." She met his eyes. "I know that now." He didn't offer pity, just understanding. Sometimes that was more healing. The next morning, Evelyn called her assistant. "Maya, cancel my investor brunch." There was a pause. "Everything okay, ma'am? I'm having lunch in the employee break room instead. Bring a guest pass for Sophie Beckett. She'll be joining us." Noah arrived later that afternoon, unsure why he'd been invited back so soon. But when he stepped into the staff break room and found Evelyn sitting on a plastic chair sipping instant coffee with Sophie, happily showing her how to use a touchscreen chess app, he understood. She wasn't just playing the game anymore. She was starting to live outside the board. That evening, Evelyn stood by the elevator waiting as Noah zipped up Sophie's backpack. "She has your eyes," Evelyn said. "She has her mother's fire," Noah replied. "I just hold the extinguisher when she gets too bold." Evelyn smiled. "It suits you, that kind of quiet strength." He looked at her. "You know, Ms. Storm, you could step off the board once in a while. The world won't fall apart if you're not 10 moves ahead." She exhaled. "I wouldn't know how," he said softly. "That's what you learn. When everything you love is already gone, you stop trying to outthink pain and you start trying to feel joy again." The elevator dinged. Sophie waved goodbye. Evelyn waved back awkward, almost girlish. As the doors closed, Noah said, "Thank you," for letting her be part of something real. Evelyn replied, "It's the first real thing I've done in years." That night, Evelyn didn't go home. Instead, she walked alone into the Aurora Tech training lab, sat at one of the AI chess terminals, and loaded the replay of their second match. Move 18. The sacrifice. Move 24. The flank reversal. Move 30. Her loss. She didn't replay it to win. She replayed it to remember why she played. Halfway through, she paused the screen and whispered aloud, "Who taught you how to lose?" Without being broken. Noah, back at home, tucked Sophie in. She whispered, "Was she nice today?" He nodded. "She's learning how to be." Sophie smiled sleepily. Then, maybe. "You can teach her chess for real." Noah leaned down and kissed her forehead. "Maybe, kiddo. But some games don't need a winner." The photo was grainy, taken from a distance, but the moment it captured was unmistakable. Evelyn Storm, billionaire CEO of Aurora Tech, sitting in a cafeteria booth beside a janitor and his little girl laughing. Her head was tilted, her expression warm. Noah Beckett sat across from her, his hand resting near a travel chessboard, and between them, Sophie giggled over a spilled juice box. It wasn't scandalous. It was human. And in the corporate world, human was dangerous. By noon, the photo was everywhere. Internal memos couldn't contain it. Breaking storm in hot water over janitor connection. Candid. CAO moment or professional boundary breach is Auroratech's stability at risk. Lucas Hale burst into Evelyn's office holding a printout like it was a court summons. His face was flushed. "What the hell is this?" he snapped, slamming the paper onto her desk. Evelyn glanced at it briefly, then returned to her screen. A poorly angled photo of soup, a child, and decency. "This isn't a joke, Evelyn." "No, but your outrage is." Lucas leaned in. "You've crossed a line. You think the board won't ask questions? You're the face of a multi-billion-dollar company, not a kindergarten chess coach." Evelyn slowly closed her laptop. "Do you think being a CEO means I stop being human, that I'm only permitted to engage with people whose net worth rivals mine?" Lucas's voice dropped. "It's not about that. It's about optics, rumors, perception. There are shareholders who are already calling emergency meetings." Evelyn stood, her voice suddenly iron. "Then let them call, and let them explain to the world why compassion is now a liability." Lucas stared at her. "You're risking your throne for a janitor." She met his gaze. Maybe it was never a throne. Maybe it was a cage. Downstairs, Noah was mopping the marble hallway when a junior marketing associate passed him with widened eyes. "Hey," she whispered, "you okay?" He looked up, puzzled. "Should I not be?" She held up her phone, hesitated, then showed him. Noah stared at the photo. His shoulders tensed, but his voice was calm. "They caught a moment. That's all." The associate nodded. "It's just, some people are talking. Like a lot." Noah offered a quiet smile. "People always talk when someone breaks their favorite illusion." He returned to mopping. But inside, something sank. Not fear-guilt. That night, after putting Sophie to bed, Noah sat alone at the kitchen table staring at the screen of his old laptop. He opened an email draft, subject notice of voluntary resignation. "Dear Ms. Storm, I appreciate the opportunities and moments of unexpected connection you've given me these past few weeks, but it's become clear that my continued presence may damage your reputation and jeopardize your leadership. For that reason," he paused. His fingers hovered. Sophie's voice drifted faintly from the bedroom. "Daddy, are you sad?" He closed the laptop. "Not sad, Peanut. Just thinking too hard. Are they being mean about her?" Noah froze. "Who?" "Miss Evelyn. I heard the radio when we got groceries. They said bad things." Noah walked to her door, pushed it open. She sat on the bed knees, tucked to her chest. Her eyes looked older than 8. "She's nice, Daddy." "She listened when I talked." She looked like she wanted to cry but didn't know how. Noah swallowed. "Sometimes, people forget that leaders are people first." Sophie's voice was soft. "So don't let her forget." The next morning, Noah entered Evelyn's office unannounced. Maya tried to stop him, but Evelyn looked up and nodded. "It's fine," she said. "Let him in." He stepped inside, holding the printed resignation letter in his hand. "I didn't want to embarrass you," he began. This got out of hand. I should have. Evelyn raised a hand. "Stop." Her tone was calm, but there was steel underneath. "I've read the rumors. I've seen the headlines. But I also know who I am and who you are. And I won't punish honesty because it makes people uncomfortable." Noah took a breath. "You're putting yourself in a firing line, Evelyn." She met his eyes. "Maybe it's time someone did." He placed the letter on her desk anyway. "This is my choice. I won't let Sophie grow up watching her father be the reason someone good falls." Evelyn stared at the letter. Her fingers hovered above it. Then she pushed it back toward him. "Noah, if I lose this company because I sat beside a janitor and his daughter and dared to feel again, then I never deserved the title to begin with." He said nothing, but his eyes, those quiet, haunted eyes, spoke everything. "Let me do this," she added, "not just for me, for every person in this building who's ever felt invisible." After a long silence, Noah picked up the letter, folded it in half, and slipped it into his pocket. "I didn't come here to be a symbol, Evelyn." She replied, voice almost a whisper. "You came here to mop floors. And instead you showed me the cost of silence." Later that evening, Evelyn sat in front of the camera for a rare internal video message sent to all employees. No PR team, no edits, just her. "I've seen the headlines. I've read the speculation," she began. "But let me be clear." She held up the photo. "This is not weakness. This is strength. This is what it means to run a company where integrity is more important than optics, and where we value people not by title, but by truth." She set the photo down. "I played German chess with Noah Beckett because he dared to raise his hand. He didn't come looking for power. He didn't even ask to be noticed. But his presence reminded me that leadership is not about prestige. It's about courage. And I'd rather stand with someone who walks in quiet truth than sit beside 10 who speak in polished lies." She paused. "If that offends anyone, there's the door." Then she clicked send. In the stillness that followed, Evelyn poured herself a glass of water. She stood at the window watching the city pulse below. Behind her, a soft knock. Noah stepped in, Sophie beside him in her yellow hoodie and polka-dot backpack. Evelyn turned surprised. "Everything all right?" Sophie grinned and handed her a folded note. Crayon scribbled on lined paper. It read, "I think you're braver than your chess queen." Evelyn laughed genuinely freely. She knelt and hugged the little girl, holding her longer than necessary. "Thank you," she whispered. Sophie nodded. "You don't have to win all the games. Just the real ones." The library smelled of old paper and second chances. Soft echoes of whispered voices floated between shelves. Outside, fall leaves scraped along the sidewalk like fading footsteps. In the back corner, where the overhead lights flickered softly, Noah Beckett crouched beside a folding table, adjusting a pawn on a donated chessboard. Around him, a half-circle of kids aged 6 to 12 leaned in, watching him like he held the secrets of the universe. He didn't talk much. He let the game teach. "See this," he said gently, tapping a knight. "This piece moves in L shapes, but it's the only one that can leap over others. Sometimes it's the ones who don't move straight that change everything." A girl with pigtails whispered, "Like me." He smiled, "Especially like you." From behind the glass doors of the library, Evelyn Storm stood quietly watching. She didn't step in. Not yet. There was something sacred about Noah in this space. No headlines, no boards, no performance, just presence. Maya Lin walked up beside her, arms crossed loosely, voice low. "You miss him." Evelyn didn't reply. Maya continued. "You're not here to recruit him back. No," Evelyn finally said. "I'm here to see if I was ever worthy of him to begin with." 15 minutes passed. The children began drifting out with parents laughing and waving. Noah noticed her just as he was wiping the pieces down. Their eyes met through the glass. Her hands remained in her coat pockets. His shoulders didn't move. She didn't expect forgiveness. She stepped in anyway. The room felt colder than it looked. Evelyn walked slowly, stopping a few feet from the table. "I wasn't sure you'd still come here," she said softly. Noah straightened. "I came here long before you knew my name." "I know," she replied. "That's what makes it real." A long pause. Evelyn sat across from him, fingers brushing the edge of the table. She stared at the board, half a game in progress, abandoned mid-thought. "You didn't reach out," she said. "After everything." "You didn't stop me," he replied. Her eyes met his. "I didn't know how." Noah studied her face, still composed, still beautiful in that cold winter way, but softer now, touched by something earned, not worn. "Do you remember the move that ended our last match?" he asked. She nodded. "You let your pawn hang." "I thought it was a mistake." He gestured to the board, but it created the tension, the silence between moves. "That's where everything happens." She tilted her head. "Then maybe this silence is a move too." They sat without speaking. The room didn't need sound. Then Evelyn reached for a white pawn and pushed it forward one square. A single gesture. Not power, not pride, just invitation. Noah glanced down. "You want to play?" She shook her head. "I want to begin again." Outside the library, dusk bled into night. The streets glimmered under old lamps. Evelyn and Noah walked side by side, not touching, not filling the silence, just letting it stretch comfortably. Finally she spoke. "I thought leadership meant always being certain, always ahead, and now I think it's about knowing when you're wrong, and who's worth admitting it to." Noah stopped at the curb, looked up at the stars barely visible between skyscrapers. People think strength is the moment you win, but sometimes it's the moment you decide losing isn't the end. She turned to face him. "You taught me that, without ever meaning to." He smiled. The best lessons never come from speeches, just moments no one sees coming. 2 days later, Evelyn stood in front of Aurora Tech's board of directors. A quarterly meeting, once routine, now pulsed with quiet tension. Lucas Hale sat across from her, arms crossed, smirking. "Before we begin the numbers," Evelyn said, "I'd like to propose a new division." Murmurs, eyebrows raised. A think tank within the company, she continued. Dedicated not to code, but to human logic, pattern recognition, strategy that isn't built in circuits but in instinct. Lucas scoffed. "And who, may I ask, will run this philosophical side project?" Evelyn looked him in the eye. A man who once cleaned these halls but saw them clearer than any of us. Silence. Then she said the words that shifted everything. "I'm offering Noah Beckett the position of Director of Strategic Patterning." Lucas leaned forward. "He's a janitor." Evelyn didn't flinch. "He's a mind most of us are too proud to recognize." An older board member cleared his throat. "Storm, are you telling us that in a company worth $40 billion you've chosen a man with no resume to lead an innovation team?" Evelyn smiled. "No resume can measure what he knows. And I'm not asking for permission. I'm notifying you of a decision." The room erupted in murmurs. But none dared object, because in that moment Evelyn Storm had never looked more certain. That evening, Noah received the email. At first he thought it was a mistake. Then a second message arrived from Evelyn herself. "I won't play without you. Not on the board, not in the company. Come back, build something with me." Attached was a keycard. Title, Director. Strategic Pattern Lab, access all floors. Noah stared at it. His reflection in the black plastic looked older, but the fire in his eyes, that was new. Sophie peeked over his shoulder. "Are we going back?" He looked at her. "Do you think we should—" She tilted her head. "Only if they let you bring your brain and your mop." He laughed. They did. And this time they even gave me a badge. The next morning, the doors of Aurora Tech opened and every head turned as Noah Beckett walked in wearing his janitor blues. Not a suit, not a tie. And he walked straight to the top floor, to the boardroom, to the seat waiting next to Evelyn. Still in uniform, she asked, raising a brow. Noah sat down, calm as ever. I figured I'd remind them where all their brilliance walks before ours. She smiled. "Welcome back, Mr. Beckett." He glanced at the chessboard beside her. "Let's play something real." The air in the Aurora Tech auditorium was electric. Rows of employees, engineers, interns, executives filled the space, buzzing with whispers that didn't stop even as the lights dimmed. It wasn't just another quarterly meeting. Something about today felt different, like the room itself was holding its breath. On stage, the company logo flickered briefly before fading to black. Then Evelyn Storm walked out under the spotlight. No podium, no teleprompter. Just her. She wore no jewelry, no flashy heels, a simple dark blazer over a white silk blouse. Understated, controlled, resolute. "Thank you for being here." She began, voice steady but intimate, as if she were speaking to each person individually. "Today, I want to talk not just about where we're going, but who's going with us." The room shifted, phones lowered, heads tilted forward. "Every company chases innovation," she continued. "But few ask who we ignore on the way to get there. And fewer still ask why the best minds often go unseen because they don't wear the right title or shake the right hands or sit in the right offices." She paused. Until now. She turned slightly. A spotlight bloomed to her right. And from the wings of the stage, Noah Beckett stepped into view, wearing his blue janitor uniform. A collective murmur rippled through the crowd, but no one laughed. Not this time. Evelyn's voice rang clear. "Ladies and gentlemen, meet the new Director of Strategic Pattern Recognition at Aurora Tech." The room froze. Then a single clap, then another, then a wave of applause that roared through the auditorium like thunder. Noah didn't bow, didn't smile wide. He simply nodded, once calm composed, as if the world had finally caught up to a truth he'd already known. He stepped to the center of the stage. Evelyn moved aside, letting him speak. Noah looked out over the sea of faces. He didn't carry notes. He didn't need them. "When I first walked into this building," he began. "My hands were calloused, my shoes scuffed. No one looked twice." Silence. A few leaned forward. "I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I was just tired. Tired of being reduced to the way I earned my paycheck. Tired of being told I was overqualified for the rooms I was never invited into." He let that sit for a moment. But then someone challenged me not with words, but with a game I had walked away from. And in doing so, she reminded me that my mind never left, just my belief did. A hush fell deeper. Noah looked at Evelyn. Their eyes held for just a beat. You can build code, you can build machines, you can build empires, but if you forget to build people, none of it will last. He glanced toward the front row. Sophie sat there, legs swinging, clutching a juice box and beaming. "So if you're in this room," Noah finished, "and you've ever felt unseen, underestimated, dismissed, remember this: you don't need permission to matter. You just need one person brave enough to see you. And when they do, don't let them walk alone." Applause erupted again. Not polite this time. Earned, honest, thunderous. As Noah turned to leave the stage, Evelyn met him with a quiet smile. She whispered, "You didn't just checkmate the board today. You changed the game." Noah replied, "And you gave me the space to play." Later that afternoon, the boardroom buzzed with activity. Evelyn entered to find several department heads in heated discussion. Lucas Hale stood at the head of the table, papers fanned out like evidence. "This is a circus. We just handed a leadership role to a man with no corporate background. The media is going to run wild." Evelyn folded her arms. "They already did. And we survived. We did more than survive, we grew. Lucas scoffed. What does a janitor know about innovation? From behind her, Noah stepped in, having heard enough. He walked to the board and without a word grabbed a marker, drew a grid simple, clean. Then in 6 precise moves he recreated a German chess sequence that blocked an executive strategy proposal from last quarter. Then he turned. I've spent more time listening in these halls than most of you have speaking. Lucas narrowed his eyes. You think you're smarter than us? Noah looked at him evenly. I think I'm different. And that's what innovation requires. Not echoes of the same voice, but dissonance that leads to harmony. The room fell quiet. Evelyn leaned forward. If you're afraid of change, Lucas, I suggest you find a smaller company to hide inside. Hours later, in the solitude of her office, Evelyn stood by the window sipping black tea. The sun dipped low over Manhattan. Noah stepped in. He had finally changed out of his uniform, now wearing a gray button-down and dark slacks. Clean, simple, but he still wore his old watch. You clean up well, she teased gently. He smirked. I thought I'd try respectable on for size. Evelyn walked to her desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a small box. I had this made. Inside was a custom chess piece, a janitor figure holding a broom in one hand and a queen in the other. Noah stared. Is this your idea of a trophy? No, she said softly. It's a reminder that sometimes the strongest pieces aren't made, they're found. Noah looked up, something flickering in his expression. You know, he said, voice lower, for years I thought my story ended when Grace died. I stopped dreaming, stopped risking, because loss teaches you to survive, but not to live. Evelyn stepped closer. And now he met her gaze. Now I'm starting to believe the second game might be the one that matters. She didn't speak, didn't need to. Their silence said everything. That night, the lights of Aurora Tech stayed on late. Not because of deadlines, but because something had shifted. A new division, a new kind of leadership, a janitor turned director, a CEO who remembered what it meant to feel. And in the center of it all, 2 people, once strangers across a chessboard, now moving toward something far more difficult than strategy. Trust, respect, connection. The real endgame had begun. There was no audience this time, no cameras, no press, just the soft hush of after-hours stillness and the steady hum of the city bleeding through the glass walls of Evelyn Storm's penthouse office. The lights were low. One standing lamp cast a golden glow over the coffee table where a travel-sized German chess set waited. Pieces already in place. Noah Beckett walked in carrying 2 mugs of tea, one black, one with honey. He set them down without a word. Evelyn looked up from the board and nodded. Black or white, he asked. You choose. He slid into the seat opposite her. I'll take white. For once, I'd like to start first. She smiled faintly. Control freak? He smirked, only on odd-numbered Tuesdays. They sat in silence for a moment, sipping tea. The kind of silence that didn't weigh down but rather warmed the room like a blanket earned familiar. Then Noah moved his first pawn. Deliberate. Center forward. Evelyn mirrored the motion. And the 4th game began. It was slower than the others. Gentler. They weren't attacking so much as revealing testing ideas, not egos. Evelyn studied Noah's posture. Calm as always, but there was something softer now. Less guarded. Less like he was defending something invisible. You've changed, she said, moving her knight. Noah glanced up. I've remembered. Remembered what that I'm more than what broke me. The words hung. Then Evelyn said, That makes 2 of us. By move 15, Noah sacrificed a minor piece to gain control of the right file. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. Risky? He shrugged. Some moves are made not to win, but to prove you're no longer afraid to lose. She held his gaze for a second too long. Then, consider me proven. They played deep into the hour's steam, curling from their tea mugs, the only sound the quiet slide of pieces and the occasional breath. By move 34, Evelyn had the upper hand. A rook, a bishop, and an aggressive flank. Noah had fewer pieces more exposed, but his king sat calm at the back, protected by nothing but positioning and faith. Evelyn leaned back. "You could have taken my queen 6 moves ago. I saw it. Why didn't you?" He paused. "Because you needed to win more than I needed to play perfect." She blinked. The moment stilled. "You knew I needed the win. I knew you needed to stop seeing victory as survival." Evelyn's breath caught. "And what if that's the only way I've known how to breathe?" Noah moved a pawn. "Then maybe it's time someone taught you another way." A few moves later, Evelyn made the final strike. Checkmate. She looked down at the board, then up at him. "I won." He smiled. "I know, but you could have stopped me." He stood slowly, walked toward the window looking out at the city. "You ever hear the story of the pianist who played the wrong final note at Carnegie Hall?" She shook her head. They asked why he didn't correct it. He said, "Because sometimes it's not about perfecting the ending. It's about giving the audience what they need to stand and clap." Evelyn rose from her seat, walked to him. This wasn't a performance. He turned to her. No, it was a mirror. She swallowed hard. "What do you see when you look at me, Noah?" His voice was low, steady. "I see a woman who spent her life outrunning ghosts, who mistook silence for strength and pain for fuel." Her lips parted, but no words came. He stepped closer. "But now I see someone who's tired of the chase, someone who wants to stand still long enough to be seen." Tears welled behind her eyes but didn't fall. "And what do you see?" she asked, "when you look at yourself?" Noah looked down at his hands, calloused steady, then at the board behind them. "I see a man who walked away from brilliance because grief made him feel unworthy of it. And now, I'm starting to believe that healing doesn't mean going back. It means letting yourself go forward with the cracks still showing." Silence fell between them again, but this time it was full of truth. Then Evelyn reached into the pocket of her blazer, pulled out a folded slip of paper. This came from HR. Noah unfolded it. Permanent contract, executive division, full benefits, salary listed, title director of strategic pattern recognition. He looked at her. "You're not afraid anymore." She replied, "Not of what people say, just of what I might lose if I don't stop running." They returned to the board, pieces still scattered from the final move. Evelyn gently set the white king back in place. "Let's play again," she said. Noah tilted his head. "We just finished." She met his gaze. "That wasn't a game. That was a conversation. Let's play for real this time." He smiled. "Real sounds good." Outside the glass walls, the city pulsed with life. Cars moved below like veins of light. Somewhere, a violin played from a neighboring rooftop. Inside, they began again. No grand speeches, no tension. Just two people finally stripped of armor daring to meet each other not as adversaries, not as titles, but as equals. The fourth game was no longer about checkmate. It was about belonging. It was a quiet Sunday morning. The kind that wrapped the world in softness, muted city sounds, golden light through sheer curtains, the air still thick with dreams. At the top of Aurora Tech's headquarters, Evelyn Storm wasn't reviewing earnings or fielding investor calls. She was kneeling in front of a little girl trying unsuccessfully to wrap a silver ribbon around a lopsided gift box. "This is harder than negotiating a hostile acquisition," she muttered. Sophie giggled from the couch. "You're tying it like a pretzel." "I like pretzels. That's not how bows work." Evelyn looked up, strands of her hair falling from its usual severe bun. "All right, Miss Professional. You do it." Sophie hopped down, took the ribbon, and in 3 smooth moves tied a perfect bow. "Ta-da!" Evelyn blinked. "Remind me again why you're not CEO yet." Sophie grinned. "Because I still need my afternoon nap." Evelyn laughed a sound still unfamiliar on her own lips, but one she was learning to trust. She sat back watching Sophie proudly place the finished box into a canvas tote. "Do you think he'll like it?" the girl asked. Evelyn's smile softened. "He's going to remember it for the rest of his life." Noah Beckett arrived at the rooftop garden a little after 10. The sky was clear, the kind of blue that feels earned after a string of gray days. Evelyn stood near the fountain, her silhouette framed by ivy-covered trellises and the low hum of bees drifting around late summer lavender. He paused before stepping forward. She turned, catching him mid-smile. "You're late," she teased. "I brought coffee. That buys me 5 minutes, only if it comes with one of those chocolate chip muffins." He held up a brown paper bag. "You're learning my ways." She took it gratefully, and they sat together on the bench near the koi pond. A quiet passed, not heavy or hesitant, just shared space. Then Sophie skipped up the steps holding the tote like a sacred artifact. "Daddy!" She beamed. "We made something for you." Noah looked between the two of them. "You two are conspiring again," always Evelyn replied. Sophie handed him the gift. "Open it." He sat the tote down and peeled back the paper. Inside, nestled in soft tissue, was a Lego chess queen, white bricks for the dress, tiny gold blocks for a crown. But what made him pause was the base. A black pedestal with a handwritten tag and Sophie's careful printing to the queen who finally played for love. Noah didn't speak. He simply stared at the little figurine, his breath catching somewhere between surprise and something far deeper. "She built it herself," Evelyn said quietly. But the message, that was all her. Noah's voice was low, thick. "You kept her safe. You listened to her. You saw her." Sophie climbed onto his lap and placed her head on his shoulder. "You always protect people, Daddy. Now someone protects us, too." He looked at Evelyn. "I don't know what this is between us," he said, "but I know it's real, and I know it scares me." Evelyn met his gaze steady and open. "It scares me, too. But so does waking up to a life built entirely on solitude. And I'm tired of being safe." He nodded slowly. "Then maybe we stop playing to win, and start playing to stay." Later that evening, Evelyn stood alone on her balcony, the city humming beneath her. The Lego queen sat beside her glass of wine, illuminated by a single warm bulb overhead. The door slid open. Noah joined her sleeves, rolled hands in his pockets. "She's asleep," he said. "Out cold. Your boardroom couch is officially her favorite bed. She's not the only one exhausted." They stood side by side, the skyline stretching around them like a living mural. "You once told me chess reveals what people fear more than what they want," Evelyn said. Noah glanced over. "And what do I fear?" She turned to him. "That if you allow yourself happiness, it might not last, and you'd rather have nothing than lose something again." He didn't answer at first. Then, "You're not wrong." She placed her hand lightly over his, but this time, "You don't have to lose alone." Noah looked down at their hands, then up at her. "And what do you fear?" She smiled sadly. "That I've spent so long being a fortress I forgot how to let someone knock." He chuckled softly. "Then let's both be wrong together." Later, they sat at the coffee table sharing tea while Sophie slept nearby. The chessboard between them remained untouched. "You ever think Evelyn said that the best games are the ones you never finish?" Noah leaned back. "Because the point wasn't to checkmate. Because the point was to sit across from someone who sees you." Noah's eyes held hers. "Then this is the best game I've ever played." In the quiet of the night, Evelyn placed the little Lego queen on her bookshelf beside a framed photo of her mother she hadn't looked at in years. For the first time, she didn't see that photo and feel pressure. She felt peace. She whispered, "I'm still your daughter, but I'm finally becoming my own woman." Then she turned off the light. 1 year later. The plaque gleamed under the morning sun. Aurora Tech Human Logic Lab, the Janitor's Code Initiative. Inside the glass building, a dozen classrooms buzzed with life. Children from all backgrounds leaned over chessboards and logic puzzles. Instructors, not just coders and tech experts, but veterans artists, retired teachers guided them patiently. No one wore ties, no one wore suits, only curiosity and kindness. At the center of it all, Noah Beckett stood in front of a whiteboard sketching a fork pattern on a chess grid while a group of 7th graders watched with wide eyes. "You don't need to be the fastest," he said, tapping a knight. "You just need to see differently, because the world doesn't belong to the loudest piece. It belongs to the one who waits for the quiet opening and moves with purpose." A boy raised his hand. "Is it true you used to be a janitor?" Noah smiled. "I still am. In my head. Every morning I clean the part of myself that doubts I belong here." The class chuckled, but one girl at the back scribbled that line in bold across her notebook. In the hallway, Evelyn Storm walked slowly, watching from behind the glass. She wore no makeup today, just jeans and a white blouse, her hair loosely tied. Freedom looked good on her. Maya Lynn stepped beside her, holding a tablet. Enrollments doubled. Press wants an inside story again. Evelyn shook her head. "No cameras today. Just let it be real." "You sure?" Evelyn smiled. This story was never written for headlines. That afternoon on the rooftop garden, a long wooden table had been set for 3. Bowls of tomato soup, grilled cheese sandwiches, and a slice of apple pie in the center Sophie's request. She sat between them, swinging her legs and sipping chocolate milk through a paper straw. "Best lunch ever," she declared. Evelyn leaned in. "That's because you negotiated like a pro. Pie and grilled cheese." Sophie beamed. "Daddy says the best deals are win-win." Noah chuckled. "And your opponent never sees it coming if you smile while you ask." Evelyn turned to him. "Smart girl." "She takes after you," he said softly. She paused, then looked down. "Do you still think about her every day? You don't talk about Grace much anymore." Noah looked out at the skyline. "Not because I forgot. Because I don't have to hold her pain anymore to honor her love." Evelyn nodded, her voice gentler now. "I think she'd be proud of the life you've built." He turned to her. "We built." Later, Sophie skipped ahead down the hallway, her backpack bouncing. Noah and Evelyn walked behind her, slower, their fingers brushing occasionally, not always holding, but always close. "She still calls you the Queen who played for love," Noah said. Evelyn smiled. "It's still the best title I've ever earned. She gave me mine too, you know." "What's that?" He stopped walking, looked her in the eye. "Hope." Evelyn's breath caught, not because of the word, but because of how whole it sounded in his voice now. Not tentative, not hidden, but lived. "I want to ask you something," he said. "Anything?" He pulled from his pocket a small silver key engraved with a chess knight. "Come with us this weekend. There's a cabin upstate, no reception. Just a fire, a lake, and one very worn-out set of wooden chess pieces I haven't touched since I was 22. She raised an eyebrow. "Are you asking me to go off-grid with a former janitor and an 8-year-old chess prodigy?" He grinned. "No. I'm asking you to stop living in check and start trusting the endgame." Evelyn's voice softened. "What if I make the wrong move?" Noah leaned in his forehead, nearly touching hers. "Then we play again. That's the beauty of people. You don't lose the match just because you lost the moment." That night, Evelyn stood before a quiet audience, not of press or investors, but of the graduating Logic Lab's first group of students and their families. She took the mic, cleared her throat, and said, "When I was a girl, I believed intelligence was a shield. That being smarter meant being untouchable. But the truth is, no amount of brilliance matters if it doesn't make the world a little softer, a little kinder." She looked at Noah in the front row. Sophie leaned against him, already asleep. "I used to play to win. Now I live to connect." And it started with a man who walked into my world and didn't try to impress me. He simply showed up. Consistently. Honestly. Fully. She held up a tiny Lego queen, the one Sophie had made now encased in a glass cube. And it turns out, the strongest piece on the board isn't the one with the most power. It's the one who moves after understanding what the other pieces have been through. Later in the soft light of the hallway, Evelyn and Noah stood before a wall of framed quotes, each written by the students. At the top, a plaque read, "Wisdom isn't what you say. It's what you repeat through kindness." Noah Beckett. He looked at her. "You ready for the cabin?" She nodded. "Only if you let me win once." He laughed. "Absolutely not." They turned, walking toward the elevator. Together. Outside, the city pulsed below. But on the rooftop, in that small sacred space they'd built, a janitor found purpose, a CEO found peace, and a child gave them both the gift they didn't know they were still allowed to receive a second chance at something real. Central Park. 1 year later, autumn leaves drift through the breeze. Evelyn, Noah, and Sophie sit at a public chess table wrapped in scarves and gentle laughter. A tourist walks past and whispers, "Isn't that Evelyn Storm?" The other shrugs. Thought she was married to some guy in tech. She is, the guy who changed everything with a mop and a move. Sophie slides a pawn forward and grins. "Your turn, Daddy." Noah looks at Evelyn. She's getting too good. Evelyn sips her coffee. She had excellent teachers. As the camera pulls back, a small wooden sign on the table comes into focus. Even pawns change the game, if they keep moving forward. Sometimes the quietest people carry the loudest truths. And sometimes, the janitor isn't just cleaning up the mess. He's reminding us all what it means to build something that lasts. If you've ever known someone who showed up quietly, who changed a life with kindness instead of credentials, or maybe you've been that person, we'd love to hear your story. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city, your town, or just a hi in the comments, because this little storytelling corner is ours. And if this story touched something in you, if it made you feel seen, heard, or reminded you that second chances are real, please consider sharing this video with someone who might need it too. And, hey, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another story about redemption, love, healing, and the power of simply showing up. From our hearts to yours. Thank you for spending your time with us today. Your presence means more than you know. Until next time, keep moving forward. Even pawns change the game.